Hello YouTube, this is another installment of the S1A rebuild, teardown and rebuild, and I've got it to this point. Mirror box is back in, most components have been reinstalled. I've been working still with the factory manual. Thought I might share a couple of insights should you want to try this yourself. As I said, these instructions here are written for people who already know what they're doing, so there's big gaps, and most of this stuff is all about installing parts that need to be adjusted and their adjustment. Some parts just go right back in the way they came out, and there's no problem, and the manual completely skips that part. You have to find out when it's too late that there are pieces that need to be installed prior to some of the adjustments. I guess I will use, this is my parts donor. So this gear right here I did not take out. That's another thing. This manual also assumes that you have completely disassembled the camera. I didn't do that. There are a few components I left because I did not need to remove them to do what I was going to do. So the adjustment for this would have been easier had I disassembled the entire camera, every nut and screw. But that's not what I did. So when it came down to the adjustment for this, I wound up having to take that little tiny E-clip off of there. I had to take these two screws out of the terminals. This is for the shutter. And I had to hold back this arm right here and actually lift off the gear and turn it around to the position where it's supposed to be in. Also, I learned for this gear, you're not going to be able to see that. Underneath all this other stuff, you have this gear. Let me find the page. Hold on. Okay, so this little gear that I was showing you right there is here referred to as the pin adjust plate, and it gives you two different versions, an old style and a new style. I had this in the wrong position when the camera was fully assembled. It's off by a little bit. This, if you can see that little pin right there needs to be just about up against this bump stop thing right here, and I had a pretty good gap there. So I wound up taking this whole assembly apart. I was going to move the whole gear by lifting it off and turning it, which you actually can't do because the gear itself screws down to the main shaft assembly. What I had tried to do initially was, there's two set screws. I know you can't see them, but they're there. There's two set screws here that you can loosen up, and you're supposed to be able to turn that ring. It doesn't give me coupler, lever, pin. That's this. Anyhow, I tried to adjust it by moving this plate. What I didn't realize that when I turned it, one of these set screws dropped down into one of the little holes that your tightening tool goes into, your spanner wrench goes into. I thought that it had a limitation as to how much it could turn. It doesn't. You just have to remember that if it suddenly stops and won't go any further, that probably one or both pins have dropped into those little spanner wrench holes. So you loosen up the set screws a little bit and continue to turn it some more. and that's how I made that adjustment after a great deal of screwing around. I also, this gear here, I won't bother looking up the name of it, but it's the bottommost gear underneath the film advance lever. It says to mark that gear before you, when you're disassembling, it says to mark that gear with a mark in relation to the body, so you know how to reset it. They're not kidding. Do that, or you're going to have to set it, reassemble everything, try to advance the film, only to discover that you're off a little bit, so you have to take the whole thing apart, reset the gear, and try again. It took me several tries to get it, but I finally got it. And there's two idler gears here, and you can't see it because this thing is still in the way, but there's a little tab that runs through both gears to a sprung stud in the bottom, and in the instructions it says, it doesn't really say put the pin here, it says the relative position of that thing that you can't see, that little pin. Let me okay, for whatever reason, that little thing that's in there that slides down in between both idler gears is called the spill. I don't know why. That needs to be at a right angle, perfectly straight between this screw and the body of the camera. It can't be off. Oops. It can't be off like this. It has to be straight. And you'll know when it's straight because it'll look straight, and also that thing they call the spill will easily, with the tip of a tool, push in and out like a button. I found that out the hard way. So this is just a continuing point in the process, and I just wanted to show you also that with this thing reassembled to this point, that shutter, however not great it may be, does work. So we're gonna, hello again YouTube. Another update. So far I have gotten the camera to this state. Hopefully you can see mirror boxes in. I've installed many of the remaining parts. Let's try back up here. Many of the remaining parts. The shutter's curtain is of course in. Now you can probably see that the shutter curtain is less than perfect. However, it does appear to be working. And with the speed control set at a 500th of a second, you can see, so I can give you right through the finder view. We'll go up here. That it works, in spite of a ripple in the curtain. It is working, and I'm convinced that I can get a decent photographic image from it. I'm doing involved in the last of the assembly here. I've installed. I had to repair one of the wires, the red wire here. If you can see that, the red wire that goes to the flash sinks, one broke off. I had to resolder it down in there. I had to back the mirror box out at the time. All this stuff is installed. The only thing I'm having trouble with right now is the slow speed. Slow speed exposure timing mechanism, which this is part of it right here. And here's what one looks like outside of the camera. Damn, I can't get this into focus at all. That's what it looks like outside of the camera. And that has to be adjusted a particular way, and apparently, although I'm not sure yet, I've got this gear right here in the slightly wrong position. There's a stud on the other side of the gear that you can't see that is supposed to be on this side of the arm, and right now it's on this side of the arm, which could probably be causing at least some of the problem. This has certainly been an adventure so far. I would do a few things different if I was going to start it over again. I'm going to have to make some notes on the instructions that I printed to remind me, if I do this again, that certain things have to be reassembled that are not listed. And I'm just pretty psyched. I really don't have much to share. I just wanted to show you how this has come. One of the things I would definitely recommend if you're going to do this is to have a complete as possible parts camera to look at, because in all of these little areas there are springs everywhere that make one thing or another do whatever it does. Like this, there's a tiny little spring in there. There's a tiny spring right here that controls whatever this thing is. There's a tiny spring right here that controls a stopper, and there's another small spring in here that has something to do with another stopper down in there. A lot of little springs, and if you bend them, they don't look like anything that they're supposed to look like. So there's something also to bear in mind. And really that was it. I just wanted to show you my progress so far. Total time investment, I am going to guess, is around 8 or 10 hours reassembly. It's been very slow. I've had to